Hi everybody, this is Eva Montalvo. When I'm teaching a restorative or gentle type class, I like to make a lot of adjustments, adding lots of props. And I wanted to show you a couple of poses today and how we can make those adjustments to make it work for our body. So a blanket is always a good idea. Blocks are a nice idea too, and I'll show you how we're going to use them. But if you don't have blocks, you can use some books, and it may even be helpful to have a little pillow. We're also going to use a bolster in this particular variation we're doing today. But if you don't have a bolster, you can take a towel, a beach towel or a blanket, and then roll it up until it's roughly the same shape. So I'm going to show you a couple of variations. So once you start in your seated position, and by the way, if you are not someone who gets down to the mat very easily, this can be done in bed. So starting with our cobbler's pose, so feet together, knees out. Take some time to notice if you're feeling some tension through the hips or low back area. And if you are, a couple of adjustments you can make. One is to take a blanket that's a little bit folded up, a little bit of height to it, and then just sit on the edge, which allows your pelvis to tilt forward. And that sometimes feels a lot better than scrunching into a pose. So I like this particular variation, sitting on the edge of the blanket. So that's what I'm going to do today. Next thing is, notice how it feels to have your feet further away from you versus closer into the groin. A lot of us will try to go as close in as we possibly can to maybe feel like we're going to make the flexibility work a little better or improve our flexibility somehow. But if the body's straining, it's really not going to relax here. So make the feet a little distance away so that you can find a little more relaxation. And if your shape doesn't look like this, it's absolutely okay. Some people will have their knees up pretty high. Some people can bring their legs all the way out, touching the ground. And then add some support if you need it. So if you notice that your legs are floating up and it's taking, it's a lot of work, to make it more restorative is about adding things to make it more relaxing. So you can always take pillows or blocks underneath the knees. So take a moment, go ahead and gather whatever you need to find this pose. So, whatever variation works for you. And then we're going to start out by sitting up so that we feel the length of our spine and the crown of our head reaching up toward the ceiling, noticing how that feels. Good. Let's take a deep breath in, lengthen. And then exhale, pull your belly back, let your shoulders round, and tuck your chin toward your chest. So really kind of rounding in this pose. And then with an inhale, shoulders come, chest comes forward, shoulders go back, and the tailbone goes back. Looking up gently. Exhale, round. So coming through a little bit of cat-cow just to warm up different parts of the body. Round, arching the back here, and then round again. Good. Inhale one more time, and then exhale back to our upright position. So that was just a little way to warm up for it. From here, we're going to find a forward fold. So what you'll want to do is just allow your body to come forward, bringing the belly and your chest a little closer to the ground. Adjust your feet further or closer away, closer in or further away, depending on what feels better for you. And right when you feel, so you might have your hands down on the ground, and right where you feel that you're really at the edge where you start to feel some resistance, then you might even back off a little bit. So what we want to do is make this really relaxing. So rather than just kind of hanging here, we can take blocks, books, a pillow, any amount that you need. You might need more, you might need less. And then let the head rest on wherever you found it. And once you find that position, you can also adjust your hands. So maybe the hands are on the ankles, maybe the hands are out in front. So take a moment, and you may also find that for you, your blocks may be inside of the legs or in front of the feet, on top of the ankles. So play around with that. So I'm just going to move into this version and then pause there. So we want to make this as relaxing as possible. Check in with your jaw and see if you can relax your face. I'm going to actually let you drift into this while I talk you through a little bit. So as you start to become more soft in this pose, notice your thoughts coming through your mind. Notice if your jaw can relax or if your face can relax a little bit more. And then check in with the breath. Feel the breath roll coming in slowly, as if it was expanding the back of the ribs, which it probably is, and exhale, releasing it back out. So I'm going to turn it sideways so you can kind of see a little bit more of how this looks from the side view. Just making this as restful as possible. And noticing where you feel it. I suggest at least about 5 to 6 rounds of breath, maybe going a minute, and if you're really enjoying it, all the way up to 3 or 5 or 10 minutes. And then, just for sake of demonstration, I'm going to slowly walk the hands back in and bring the torso back to upright. So whenever you find a restful or restorative position like that, it's important that you allow yourself to stay there. The stillness can actually do more for you than moving quickly from one thing to another. And so just to release from that, we're going to shake out the legs, stretch them out, maybe do a little windshield wiper movement with the knees bent and a little wider. So, and again, in restorative poses, it's usually helpful to spend some time really letting the body unwind in that pose. And it's progressive. It doesn't happen right away. So a good minute to 5 minutes is beautiful for that. So then moving into, instead of the forward fold or rounded spine, we're going to come into a more of a back bend position, which opens up the front of the heart. So one way to do this is, as I mentioned, use a bolster. It's going to go right across the back, just below where your armpits are. And if you don't, again, have this bolster, then you're just rolling up a blanket. And you can decide whether the bolster's too much or if you want it to be a little bit bigger. So depending on what you have on hand. The way this works is, so we're going to take that same position with the feet, but we'll start with the feet flat. And then as you roll down, wait until you find where that bolster hits. So kind of using your hands to guide you down, and see if you can find the place where the bolster is right about where, for women, the bra line would be. And then the arms are above the bolster, so that your arms can clear that with the arms out to the side. Once you find that, if it feels okay, let your head drop back. And if that feels like too much of a back bend, take a block or a pillow, or a block and a pillow underneath the head. So always take your time when we're setting up for this kind of a pose. Then check it, just settle into this, feeling the bolster supporting your upper back area. Then walk your feet together, knees open out to the side, Once again, deciding feet closer in toward the groin or sliding out away. So just adjusting. It takes about a good 30 seconds to a minute simply to get into place. And then another 2 or 3 minutes to let the body relax here. So take a few breaths, slow, deep, calming breaths. Observe the difference between a stretch or an intense feeling and a place where the body is in pain or maybe even straining to hold a position. So feel free to adjust that simply by coming out of the pose or backing off of wherever you went to. Once you're in this pose, then hold for a few breaths. Just notice where you're feeling it. You'll probably observe that this is just a gentle back bend on me. The bigger bolster I have, the bigger the back bend would be. And maybe even letting the head all the way back. But again, it's not so important how high or how deep you go into it. And with the arms out to the sides, palms up, it's also expanding the chest and giving you a nice stretch across the front in through the shoulders. So take 3 rounds of breath here. When you're ready to come out of the pose, bend the knees, set the feet on the ground, and then just very slowly, tucking your chin up toward your chest, roll to one side, and move the bolster out of the way. So these are the kind of poses you might experience whenever you take a restorative class with me. So, and then ending up with our back on the mat, now coming more to a neutral spine. Feet are flat on the mat. And you can find the opposite variation. So rather than the knees being out, let the feet go wide and the knees in towards each other and notice how that feels. Just releasing the 2 variations of that particular cobbler's pose or butterfly pose. Good. And then bringing the knees to stand up toward the ceiling, a little windshield wiper side to side. All with the goal really of finding any tension in our body and then releasing the tension. Maybe hugging the knees to the chest and rocking side to side. And then when you're ready, just rolling to one side and then pressing yourself back up to a seated pose. So I hope that that gives you a little preview of what you might find in a class with me, or even just to practice on your own. It's just a nice little midday practice or after work, something to let go of some of the tension you might have in your hips from maybe sitting for a long time or whatever your activities were during the day. Hope you join me sometime, and I hope you enjoyed this mini practice. Namaste.